Well, since everyone is so quiet, I would like to welcome you here tonight to the Conifer Town Hall meeting. This is sponsored by Conifer Area Council. This is actually our 40th Town Hall meeting that we have held since the fall of 2003. And the first thing I'd like to do is to thank J.J. Madwells. They are our community support for this Town Hall meeting. Each Town Hall meeting we have somebody help us with the support. And just to give you just a tiny bit of information about Conifer Area Council, we're a non-political, non-profit organization of volunteers. We do not support or oppose any development, issue, political agenda, individual person, or business. We strive to get information out to the community about our community, and that's what we're doing tonight. For those here for the first time, we will have several presentations without interruption or questions. If you have questions, please ask them during the open house segment that will start at about 8 o'clock. And again, we request that there be no comments or questions during tonight's presentations, and that there be no politicking or campaigning inside the school. So what's going on around here? There is so much to talk about, and we'd like to take just a few minutes to share some of what is going on this summer in the Conifer area. We still have some people coming in, so we'll just have a few people coming up to talk just a little bit about what's happening this summer. So first I would like to introduce Don Smith, who is the Executive Director of the Conifer Area Chamber of Commerce. Don.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, first off, on pages 4 through 8, you can see just some of the things. This is not an all-inclusive list. Believe it or not, there are many more things. This is what we could fit on 4 pages. So please take a look, just highlighting a few things for the Mountain Peace Shelter, Taste of Italy, a fabulous dinner that will be on May 11th. On May 19th, the 285 Showcase will be a free event to the public at the Conifer High School. This will be a way to learn more about businesses in the community, as well as to eat and be entertained by local groups. And then also on the same day in the parking lot is our great Spring Fling It recycling event. So be sure to come see us at the high school on May 19th. And then another event to highlight is on July 14th. Last time we mentioned that the Chamber was having an outdoor wine tasting at Norm Meyer's property. However, our community focus has changed, hasn't it? So we are now going to support the Evergreen Elks Lodge fundraiser for the Lower North Fork fire survivors and families on July 14th. I hope you can attend that, and please look at local newspapers for more information about that Evergreen Elks event. And then lastly, I have a table in the back, and I have ballots. The Conifer Chamber acts as a visitor center, and we are creating a slogan to put on t-shirts and mugs. So just a few that are suggested are, some of them are nicer than others. And one of them is, take a hike. One of them is, get a view. And no offense to our people who came up the hill. Another one is, above the smog, Conifer. So if you don't like any of those, feel free to write in your favorite, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn, and we also need to thank Dawn because she put that list together, and that's a lot of stuff happening, and she put that together. So another round of applause for Dawn for getting that together. Okay, now we have the new supervisor of the Conifer Public Library here just to talk a little bit, for just a minute or two, about some of the programs going on this summer at the Conifer Public Library. Brian Moseby.
Good evening. Okay, first thing, today until April 29th started the One Book for Colorado project that was through the Lieutenant Governor's office. So if you know a family, a 4-year-old that would like to get a free book, the library is one of the distribution points. So come on in, there's no charge or anything like that. It's all done by the state of Colorado and the governor's office. Second thing, we have summer reading coming up soon. You should be able to start registering for that. This year it is all online, so look for the link on it's jeffcolibrary.org. There should be a link soon to go ahead and sign up for that. We have kids, teens, and adult summer reading. With that, 8 hours of reading, you get to enter a chance to win either an iPad 3 or a Kindle Fire. So it's worth reading 8 hours during the summer there. Let's see, we have a few programs going on. The soonest, April 28th, we have an Uncovering the Titanic program for ages 6 and up. It's a hands-on program, so it sounds very exciting. May 17th, we have a science fiction into film program where we'll be watching the movie Rise of the Planet of the Apes and talking about some of the novels that have been made into film. And then we have a bunch of summer reading programs going on. We have a couple of magicians, a Starry Nights art program, one called Top Hogs, which I'm particularly fond of. It is miniature pigs that do tricks, so it should be exciting. The teens actually have a forensics hands-on investigation type program and a nocturnal animal program. And then for the adults in June, we're going to have the outrageous Molly Brown, which is a historical reenactor coming to talk about the life and times of Molly Brown. So come on out. All the programs are free. I have more information on the back table there if you can see me after the program if you need more specifics. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And next we have the resident engineer with CDOT. Steve Harrelson comes to all of our town hall meetings and he tells us a little bit about the updates on Highway 285. So Steve.
Thank you. We don't have any real big active construction going on. Schaefer's Crossing was finished last fall. We are now designing the next interchange, which is Pine Junction. We have no construction funding identified for that, so it probably won't happen for at least 2 or 3 years. We've got some minor construction projects wrapping up. One is the glare screens in Turkey Creek Canyon that were put on the new barrier here this spring. I think they're about done. I didn't work on that one. It was a safety project, but driving up tonight, it looks like they're about done. We've got another little project that's going to happen this summer. Just on the northbound side by Windy Point, there's a little area where water is bleeding up through the pavement, and it's been causing some ice flows. So this summer we're going to do a small project, rip out some of those that concrete pavement section and put in some free draining material, try to give that water a place to go other than the roadway. A big project that we've got designed that's not really in the Conifer area, but it might impact some of you, is on 285 through South Park. We've designed some passing lanes, 3 in the southbound direction, 2 in the northbound direction, and an overlay. We had originally scheduled to go to add on that here in the next couple of weeks. We've kind of stubbed our toe a little bit with some wetland permitting, so we're going to be delayed at least until July. So that probably won't start constructing until September or so at the earliest, which is probably okay because that's when the tourist season slows down. So those are the big projects we've got going. And normally I stay here till the end of the meeting and ask questions. I've got some personal commitments, so that I have to leave about 7:15. But if you have any questions or comments, I'll be hanging around. Just come and find me, and we can have a sidebar conversation.
Thank you, Steve. Next we have Bruce Daly, who is RTD board member. I think there's some new developments happening with RTD, and we want to hear about those. So, Bruce.
Thank you. I'm the board director for District N, which is Evergreen, Conifer, and Incorporated Jefferson County. Now, I could talk at length about the progress being made on all the light rail and meter rail corridors, progress we're making down at Denver Union Station, progress we're not making on some of the unfunded corridors, and what we're trying to do about that. But instead of that, I'm going to talk about Pine Junction. As you know, the Pine Junction parking right, as the gentleman from CDOT mentioned, the current one is owned by CDOT, and it's a dirt lot And eventually, CDOT will want to take that back and redevelop that intersection. But with a little foresight in the years past, we bought some land off of Mount Evans Boulevard near the post office, and we were now in the process of developing that into a new parking lot with concrete and gravel. It'll be a very nice parking lot when we're finished. At the moment, we're strictly in the engineering and applying. We put out an RFP for the construction of this new parking lot. We're waiting for Commissioner Rosier to approve some of the legalities up there. And we're watching for nesting birds. There's some trees on the property. I think many of you may know the property. It's right behind the restaurant, across from the post office. It's quite a large piece of property. We're pulling the trees out and replanting some of them at one of our other parking lots. So that's an ongoing process. And we hope to start construction on that parking lot this summer and finish by the end of the year. Another important, is there anyone from the 285 Coalition here today? They're great supporters, riders of the Conifer bus. No thanks, okay. Another piece of information I want to give you is, it's rather early yet, but when the West Corridor light rail is open, the one that runs from Golden to downtown, it's going to alter a lot of our local bus service. A lot of our buses will become feeders to the West Corridor line. And there was some concern from our friends up here on the Conifer line that it might affect the Conifer bus. The good news is it will have very little effect. The Conifer bus will still run from Conifer and go to downtown. There'll be some minor changes because it will swing by the new Federal Center parking lot, which is about 2 blocks south of where we used to pull in, so there'll be some adjustments there. There'll be some, I'll tell you what the Conifer adjustments will be, and there's no major changes on the Conifer bus. They will still, the regional buses will still go downtown, but they, some of them will stop at the light rail station. I will announce that RTD is holding public hearings on all these changes that will occur next year when the West Rail opens next May. And it's a long way off, but they have to do it because of finances, and they need to make plans for all the feeder lines and how it will affect all the other routes. And so we're going to have, I insisted that even though it doesn't affect the Conifer route too much, that we do have a town hall meeting in Conifer and also one in Evergreen, just to clear and clarify any doubts of how the changes will affect the Conifer route. The minor schedule adjustments on the Conifer route, it will take a couple of minutes longer for the bus to turn around because it has to go down Evans Boulevard. So it'll take a little longer, so it'll add a little bit of time to the Conifer route in that corner. And the same way of the buses that feed into the Federal Station to catch the light rail train will take a little longer.
Thank you very much.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. So anybody that knows Angela Bassano knows that she is in the back of the room, and she has a time card. And so she is back there, and so all the speakers need to know that she is back there, and she has a green time card when it's 1 minute left and a red time card when time is up. So all speakers know that, and now you know why Bruce's time was up. Okay. Next, I want to ask Jim Myers to come up. He's with Journey Church. I don't know about you, but I have seen Journey Church members everywhere, and they're just doing a lot in the community. So we just asked them to come and let us know some of the things they're doing, and I know there's been a lot of questions about the property that they own and all of that. So Jim is going to talk just a minute about that.
Angela, don't time card. Well, for those who don't know, we have property at the corner of Shadow Mountain and 73. We have about 46 acres there. We'd like to call it the Journey Ranch. And that property is all about the community. We have a hiking trail already built. It's free for anyone to use anytime. We have a 9-hole Frisbee golf course that we're going to expand to 18 this summer. Again, free for anyone to use anytime. We were able to use the tree property to provide about 30 cords of firewood for low-income families this last year. We'd like to do that again this coming winter. Just to alleviate some of your fears, we're focusing right now on purchasing land. There's been a lot of questions about whether we're going to build on that property. If we do build, we will not build in the meadow. So the elk continue to have babies there, and you don't have to worry about that. If we build, it would be on the top of the property back towards the high school. A couple of other things. We've moved the Angry Llama Diner from the crossings to Evergreen. Sorry for the Conifer folks, just a little bit farther to drive. And still serve great food. We've just opened a driving school called Mountain Roads Driving School. You can look that up at mountainroadsdriving.com. All of our instructors are certified, we're insured, we're ready to go, and we'd like to offer those courses to kids for approximately half of what they would normally have to pay to get the driving education. We're going to continue with movies in the meadows on Friday nights, although we'll probably move it over to the high school just to make it easier. And I think that's all I wanted to share. Thank you, Area Council.
Thank you, Jim. I know you guys were really instrumental in the fire effort, so thank you for that. And last we have Peter Barkman with Conifer Area Council. He's a board member, and he's going to talk about the development updates that he actually prepares, and they are on our website all the time. So, Peter.
Thank you, Shirley. We always tease Angela about needing a hook so she can grab people, but since we can't see her with the crowd tonight, I'm going to give her this broom, and you can wave it in the air to let people know because you're hard to see. I'll be very quick because I don't want Angela's hook. We put together this collection of the development updates, and these are taken from the notes that come out from the county on zoning cases. And so they are updated. We keep this updated on the website. We bring a printed copy every time we have a town hall meeting. And so the most current information would be on our website. To be quick, I will just bring your attention to two cases that everybody's been watching lately. And the first is the Conifer Heights, which is a piece of property across from the Safeway. That has been come back to the surface for rezoning, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval by the Board of County Commissioners, and their hearing will be on May 1st. The other case that's been of great interest in the community is the Critical Mass roller. It's the slash site on Pleasant Park Road. That was recommended by the Planning Commission for not approval by the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners have already had their hearing, but they've continued their decision to May 8th pending a sound study. So that one's still out there, and you may want to go to that Board of County Commissioners hearing on the 8th. And that's it. Feel free to grab these and watch the website. And Angela, I'll bring you your broom.
Thank you, Peter. You know, we've had a tragedy in our community, and it's one that is and will continue to make us stronger as a community. We would like to dedicate tonight's meeting to all of those affected by the Lower North Fork fire. So all donations will be given to Mountain Peace Shelter to give to those families. Also, there are the remembrance bands. There's just a few left. They're the green bands. And you can go to the Mountain Peace or the Mountain Resource Center table for that too, to make a donation for that. This meeting is not about who to blame, but it's how to come together as a community, an amazing community of amazing people, to help in making sure that something like this doesn't happen again. So we have several speakers tonight that will be talking about the North Fork fire, and hopefully this speaker will keep going, this mic. The first person that I would like to bring up is Director Mike King of the State of Colorado Department of Natural Resources, and he's representing the governor's office. Mike.
Good evening. As was introduced, I am the Director of the Department of Natural Resources, and I'm here on behalf of the Governor's Office. And I, of course, want to begin by saying that the Governor understands the unimaginable agony and anguish that this community is going through. He's been here. I had an opportunity to tour the site. The Lieutenant Governor has been here. We stay engaged with the community as we move through this incredibly difficult time. Our hearts and our thoughts are with this community and will continue to be throughout this healing process. I want to talk to you about what's being done in response to the fire, the things that the Governor has set in motion, and then of course I will stay for the 8 o'clock hour and answer the questions that you may have. The first thing that you probably have seen that was ordered by the Governor and requested on April 2nd was a prescribed fire review. A gentleman by the name of Bill Bass came from Bighorn National Forest in Wyoming. He was the team leader and did a top-to-bottom review of the prescribed fire and an evaluation of that right up until the point that fire became, the prescribed fire became a wildfire. Mr. Bass submitted that to the Governor and briefed him on April 13th. That report is available linked from the Governor's page, and it'll also be linked from the Department of Natural Resources page first thing in the morning, so you can look through that. We learned a significant amount from that report about what we need to do. The Governor, as I know you are aware, has initiated a ban on prescribed fires on state properties and by the State Forest Service until and unless he is comfortable that we have done everything humanly possible to ensure that this does not happen again. The lessons we've learned, I'll briefly walk through a few of those. Clearly, there was issues with masticated fuels, their interplay with natural fuels, and that we need to, in our plans in the future, make sure that we do a better job of dealing with those different kinds of fuels and the dynamics that each brings. The plan included a 200-foot burn area around the edge that was intended to contain the fire. Under the circumstances of the wind event, that proved insufficient. We will certainly evaluate that, and I'm sure, especially in the red zone and the WUI, expect that in the future that zone will be widened. Also, we learned that during the testing in October of 2011, that there was a jump across an area, and that should have been something that set off warning signals that should have been given extra attention, because the controlled burn jumped in the same place, and so we're looking at that closely. We need to get better weather information, more accurate weather information. We need to monitor it much more closely because we live in Colorado and know that the weather changes, especially in the foothills and with the Chinook winds. The protocols need to be adhered to. Although the prescribed fire report found that the vast majority of the protocols were followed, there certainly was a failure to go out on Sunday the 25th and evaluate that fire. Bill Bass concluded that it might not have made a difference, but under no circumstances should protocols not be followed, and we will reinforce that. Also, the recommendation to use infrared heat detection to make sure that when a controlled burn is thought to be out, that the infrared confirms that. Before we will issue any authorization to do prescribed fire, before the Governor will lift his ban, he has also ordered that we undergo a protocol review. Because the prescribed fire review said that the protocols were largely followed and this happened anyway, it begs the question of, well, what was deficient in the protocols? And that evaluation is being undertaken as we speak. I am chairing that committee. We are evaluating top to bottom the protocols that are standard operating procedure, and the Governor has made it clear that one of the most important aspects of that is a protocol that may be acceptable in the flat tops. In the red zone and along our front range, they're so densely inhabited. We probably and almost assuredly we'll have a different standard set out there. And so that review and recommendations will be made to the governor within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Finally, in the most important decision that I think will be undertaken and was initiated by the governor with the support of Senators Bennett, Senators Udall, and Representative Mike Kaufman, that is a top-to-bottom suppression response review. And that, for those of you who have followed what was done in response to Hayman and what was done more recently in response to the 4 Mile fire, is a comprehensive review, and that could take 6 months or maybe even longer. And that will focus on all aspects of the reverse 911 calls, the ability to mobilize and galvanize resources and get them quickly and efficiently to the fire, what resources are available, because clearly there's a feeling that was not done as well as could be done, and so that will be an opportunity. And part of that suppression review will involve public input. We will give everybody in the community an opportunity to give us their perspective and their experiences so we can learn from that. The final aspect that is currently underway is a review of the structure of the Colorado State Forest Service. The Forest Service is currently housed and financed and managed through the Colorado State University. There is a feeling that because of that, it created a complicated line of authority. The governor has made it clear and requested that the Chief of Staff, Roxanne White, and that Mark Gill, the Chief of Staff for the Colorado State University, come together, and we have been participating during this week on developing recommendations for structural changes to make sure that there is a single line of authority and a single individual who is accountable in response to prescribed fire and fire suppression efforts by the Colorado State Forest Service. I don't want to presuppose the outcome of that, but the reason it is done so quickly is because it will require a statutory change, and I think there's every intention that the concerns about accountability that this community has, while it's difficult now with that structure at CSU, the governor will, when we are said and done, have a single line of authority, and the buck will stop with the governor and with the executive branch. Finally, I want to talk a little bit and thank Representative Cheri for her involvement. She has come to the forefront and been intimately engaged in this discussion, made it very clear, and appropriately so, that now is not the time for politics. Now is the time that as we galvanize as Coloradans and as people in this community to make sure that we do everything humanly possible to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and that all available resources within the state government are available to this community, and that we participate in the healing process. And you have my commitment and the governor's commitment that we will do everything possible. But having said that, we understand that the anguish and the agony that you've gone through is unspeakable, and that what we can do going forward won't in any way obviate some of the impacts to this community. And so our commitment is that we will do everything in our power, but I don't want to stand here and tell you that we can make it better or right. We'll do everything we can. We understand what you're going through.
Thank you, Mike. And Mike is going to be here during the open house. We will also have Todd Hartman with the Department of Natural Resources, Dave Hard with Emergency Management, and Rich Holman with the Colorado State Forest Service. They will all at the open house segment, they'll be up here, and anybody that still has questions can sit right down here and ask those questions. Next, we have Cheri Gerou. State legislator Cheri Gerou. Cheri comes to all of our town hall meetings, is absolutely wonderful. She is a very great person for our community. Cheri.
Thank you. Thank you. They have it taped here so you stay here, so I can't walk away. Shirley, thank you for everything you've done. You all know that these always come off without a hitch, and between Shirley and everybody else that works in the Conifer Area Council, this is the best town hall in all of western Jefferson County because you all get the largest turnout. It's considering how scattered we are in the rural area as far as where we live, the community spirit here is very, very alive and very rich, and thank you, Shirley, for what you're doing. It's wonderful. I really appreciate it. I also would like to thank Director King for being here. Mike grew up in Montrose, and so he understands a lot of the rural issues that we're going through. He's been very effective, very good with the Department of Natural Resources, and he's at the helm of that. The governor's office has been very kind during the process when we've been going through this. This has been so terrible, and none of us that were not affected can really understand those of you that were. However, you have a level of commitment from the legislature, because we've been going through the budget process for the last 2 weeks. They've been occupied with other things, but you have been remembered down there time and time and time again. And I appreciate your spirit, I appreciate your passion, because what you will be doing through this process, as we go through this process, is you're not only making a bad situation better, but what you all are doing is you're saving other rural areas in the state of Colorado. Because the work that you all are doing, the issues that you're bringing up are not going to be forgotten, they're not going to be lost, and I pledge that to you. Former Senator Mike Kopp and I have run several bills on wildfire mitigation, on strategic planning, and you have my commitment as things roll through with all of these studies that are being done and all these reports, and I am down there to dog this for you, because the reports will come out and you will be seeing them, and there will be transparency, I promise. But there will be legislation that follows. I know there will be legislation that follows. So all of you, please don't think that you've gone through a terrible thing, but lessons will be learned, and the state will be better for the actions that you've been taking, and I really thank you very much for everything you've done. I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on what I'm doing at the state legislature. We are going through the budget process. This afternoon, the Senate is debating the bill that I introduced in the House, the long bill, which is the state budget. There are areas that we did protect. One of the areas that we protected in the state budget was compensation for volunteer firefighters as far as a pension fund. I think it's very timely that I was adamant about them not cutting it, and it was not cut. I'm not sure it helps our district so much. I know it will help the Left-Hand Canyon firefighters, but we need to make sure that those volunteers in the fire district, volunteers, and all of the other districts that came, and the Jeffco sheriffs, and I was here on a Saturday. I didn't want to come in when anybody really saw me there, because I didn't want it to be obvious that I was here. Ted was doing such a fabulous job. All of the sheriff department, these gentlemen and ladies are an incredible asset, and thank you all very, very much for what you did. We really appreciate it. So how many in the room are involved with the volunteer firefighter, the work? How many here volunteered to help with the fire? Can I see hands? And I know a lot of you volunteered food, and I know a lot of you were just there. I want to thank you very much, and if we could give them a round of applause, because they gave. So Angela's about to give me the hook, and I don't want her hook. So quickly with the budget, what we did is we've got a budget that is balanced. There are 65 members of the House. The budget that I presented, 64 members of the 65 members of the House voted for the budget. That's unheard of. We protected Amendment 35 tobacco tax funding from the very beginning. We are holding K through 12 harmless. They're getting the same amount of money per pupil that they got last year, plus we're giving them a few $1 million for extra testing. And lastly, but not least, the senior property tax exemption was protected. So those of you that will be benefiting from that, that will be coming to you this year. Thank you very much for what you've done. I appreciate you, and if there's anything I can do, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, and State Senator Harrelson.
So, Tim, where are you? Someplace.
He's still
He's
en
not here
route.
yet? He will be here probably during the open house. Okay, next we have the Jefferson County authorities. We have Jefferson County Sheriff Ted Mink, and then we have all three of our county commissioners. We have Faye Griffin, we have Don Rosier, and we have John Odom. And they have 15 minutes between all of them, and I think it'll be really interesting who takes up most of the time. But Jeffco Sheriff Ted Mink is first, so he might. We'll see.
Yeah, I've never done 5 minutes in my life, so you can have the full 15 minutes. See all the news cameras are here. I thought they were here for me, but I think they're here for Norm Meyer. Like I said, there's a lot to talk about. I just want to hit on one key issue for my 5 minutes worth, and then I'll turn it over to the commissioners because I think they're doing a good job with working on the recovery aspect of the homes that were destroyed up there and some of the families. But certainly the one hanging issue out there seems to be that I get time and time again is our 911 system. Now, the reason I say it's our 911 system because it's all of ours, because it is a system that is managed by the E911 authority. So the sheriff's office is not the proprietor of a 911 system. It is purchased by the E911 authority, and all of you pay that surcharge on your phone bill that helps support that. The reason I want to make that clear is because there were issues when we launched the 911 evacuation notices to the affected areas. And what we found out was there are several overlays as far as software, and forgive me, I'm not a technical guys, but there's several overlays there before you actually get to a system that takes into account or launches those addresses to the phone numbers. So it involves CenturyLink, who supplies information to the software company. It's the county assessor that supplies information to the software company. On all these have these what they call geocodes or locations for your homes. So what we found out was that some of the issues were if they didn't have a good geocode for an address, they would, and I'm talking about the company called First Call, would place that into the city mailing address. So as you know, a lot of you have mailing addresses in Morrison and Littleton. So they would, if they didn't know where to properly put that, they would take that address and stick it in the town center of Morrison. Well, obviously that was outside the launch area, so a lot of those addresses didn't get our reverse 911 call. We have since corrected that. Our 911 executive director has gotten with a software company, and there was over about 100,000 improperly coded phone numbers throughout Jefferson County, including the cities. But they have since corrected that. And we did a test last night. We took Evergreen, Conifer, and Morrison, and we did a test launch, and it was within acceptable parameters of people receiving that call. What I want to emphasize is 911 is a tool. It is not the end all. We all, and I'm including myself because I'm a mountain resident, have to be cognizant of where we live and the dangers and react accordingly based upon your gut instinct or what you know at the time. But certainly it's a tool. We try to use a tool to the best of our ability, but obviously sometimes it does not work because it is technology. So that's my 5 minutes. Who wants to go next? Don? Or you? Oh, okay. They're all coming up. So I'm done. I'm going to turn you over to the commissioners. Good luck.
Thank you, Sharon. That's the quickest speech I've ever heard the sheriff give. Ever. So with that said, I am Don Rosier, one of the 3 county commissioners, joined today by Commissioner Faye Griffin and Commissioner John Odom. And we'd like to just be very brief. See, Angela already has the stop card up. She's heard us talk before. But I would like to personally say thank you for everybody who pitched in. I spent a considerable amount of time up here during the evacuation, during the fire, and talked with numerous people. I sat in that, as many of you know, I sat in a little desk right here most of the time talking. And I'm just amazed at the community that came out from the sheriff's office doing the job that they did, a phenomenal job, to all the first responders, to the Chamber of Commerce. Don, you're wonderful. Keep up the good work. You know, there's never a good time for a fire, never. But this fire occurred right before spring break, and the school district opened up their schools for us to utilize. And it provided us with just a location to be in here. It just said, here you go. Take it, use it. What can we do? Which was phenomenal. The county staff, Journey Church, phenomenal. Feeding all of us. The amount of volunteers that they put together, and they were so nice. Everything they did, every volunteer had a smile on their face. And then the Mountain Resource Center. As you've probably heard here, we're in the initial stages of working through with the Disaster Recovery Center, which we staffed with many different departments at the county. We are continuing that disaster recovery and mobilization. We realize the fire's out, but there's still a lot of work to do. And Kate Newman has stepped up to the plate, and we'll bring Kate up here in a few minutes. Many of you have talked with Kate. She's the disaster recovery manager for Jefferson County, and she's the one responsible for working with all the different state and federal departments and coordinating with the county, making sure that everything is moving along in the right direction and that all of your concerns, all of your issues are being handled and managed properly, and you're getting a response that you need. I also want to say a big thanks to the Mountain Resource Center for community donations, for stepping up immediately and doing what they have been doing. It shows, you know, when disaster strikes, it really shows what a community is made of, and this community is wonderful. I'm proud to represent District 3 and represent you all, and it shows a lot of what everybody here is made of. A couple items that I do want to highlight, and then I'll turn over the mic, is erosion mitigation. Many individuals said, what happens? We have some scorched earth out there, we're getting into the rainy season, what's going to happen? Currently, right now, a mapping and mitigation assessment is occurring. It should be wrapped up here within about a week, and they're doing some satellite image mapping, they have boots on the ground, they're going through, and from that mapping effort that they're doing, they will look at possible federal funding for mitigation measures. But we will not have a good idea on any type of dollars being allocated and or where those dollars will be allocated until that mapping is done. And then also, any of you that would like additional information on where do I go to do something, we have on our website, on the Jefferson County website, we have a complete list of everything from assessor's information to disaster recovery center information, debris removal, hazardous waste disposal, letters from the state, you name it. It's on the website. It's also printed out for you here. If you do not have access to the internet right now, or if you just like a hard copy, please come by after the meeting. We'll go ahead and hand out, we'll give you a copy, and we'll give you the links and reference of what to do. And then also, our county liaison, Kate Newman. She cannot hide. Her phone number is everywhere. And so if you need anything, her email address is there. If you would like her phone number, right there. If you have referrals to outside agencies, building, zoning, anything you had question-wise, Kate is the one-stop shop. She is, seriously, she is so knowledgeable on what's going on. She's really stepped up. She's a phenomenal individual, and she will help you out with anything you need. I'm going to hand it over to the other commissioners because I know I've used my time.
Hi everybody, my name is John Odom, Jefferson County Commissioner. I will actually be brief. I see a lot of green shirts out here. I just want to send a shout out to all the sheriff's officers again, and the sheriff's office and the sheriff. You know, when you see this stuff happening on TV, it's one thing. You think you know what they're doing, but when you're a commissioner and you see it up close, I've seen it twice now. Last year there was a fire above Golden, and this fire this year, whether it was down at the Conifer High School, seeing the command center there, up here at the DRC. It was really amazing to see what these guys do, what they have to go through to fight these fires. And we are really lucky to have first responders like we do in this county. I will be here for the open house here in just a few minutes, and I'm going to hand the phone over to Commissioner Faye Griffin.
Thank you, and I also will be very brief. I again want to tell everybody how heartfelt I am about the situation, and Kate is trying to get all the information necessary. If there is a question about something, she will get back with you. She'll find out, she'll get back with you. It's always a pleasure to come up here and see all of you, and it's a neat place. I was a little late because I got here early, so I took a little drive up the road. I ended up on Griffin Drive. So then I didn't realize I was kind of far away, so I had to get back here, so I was a little late. So Kate has to take me to my car because it's way down here. But again, I just want to tell you that we all are so, you know, we just like to cry just to know what's going on. But we're going to snap out of it. Shirley is so great getting everybody together. We're gonna do it better next time, if there is a next time. But people always tell me it's not when, or it's not if, it's when. So we all have to be careful, always. And thank you again for everyone that helped. Thanks.
Kate, just real quick, this is Kate.
We have a lot of representatives from the county here tonight, so they will be over in this area here later, so you can talk to all of them. Next, we have Sharon Schrage, who is the Executive Director of the Mountain Resource Center. Sharon's just going to take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about what they do, and there's so much to tell.
And I echo Kate having all the information because her and I have been connected at the hip for a few weeks. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I'm going to read this. I'm fearful of Angela, and I only have 2 minutes, and I want to make sure I say everything that I want to. As we have all witnessed, crisis and disaster can happen to any of us at any time, to our family, to our friends, and to our community. Our organization, the Mountain Resource Center, was founded by this community, for this community, with the anticipation that our neighbors would experience a crisis just like this one. We are a caring community. We demonstrate compassion and we extend ourselves to others. We choose not to ignore someone else's grief, needs, or loss. One of the roles of the Mountain Resource Center is to help those in crisis, not just low-income families, but individuals who find themselves facing a disaster. We are here to support those who have been affected by this fire in the way they choose, supporting them and their families forward to the other side of this life-changing event. We have received great support since day one from Jefferson County, the Sheriff's Office, COVOAD, Red Cross, and the Salvation Army, to name a few. We have always been given wonderful resources, and now we've been given even more resources from not only our community, but from the greater metropolitan Denver area to help those impacted by the North Fork fire. It's how our community says, we care. We are seeing more people every day. Some come to us just to tell their story, find housing, seek counseling service. Many have come for food since everything they had needed to be thrown away. We have gift cards for gas, for prescriptions. Others have left donations. Some have come to just put a where do we start plan together, or for smoke smell removal. That's a tough one. There are all types of things, and these are the things that we're ready to help our neighbors with. We are located on Kitty Drive, just behind Staples. Please come and stop by. If you don't want to make an appointment to see us at Mountain Resource Center, we will come to you. We have 3 events that the community has already put together, and information staff way back there is back at our table, so come and see us. I really want to thank everyone this evening. Mountain Resource Center staff and volunteers feel blessed to be on the front line to turn community donations into hopes and new dreams. And please, like always, let's continue to take care of ourselves and each other.
Thank you, Sharon. And now we'd like to ask the new chief of Elk Creek Fire Department, Chief Bill McLaughlin, to come up. He was actually supposed to come up to speak tonight anyway at our town hall meeting before the fire happened. But he has gotten quite an initiation into our community, and we'll hear from him now. Chief.
So yes, those of you who were here 2 months ago might recall that they asked me to come and introduce myself tonight and talk about, what I saw as, changes that might be going forward over the Elk Creek Fire District. So I'll start. I'm Bill McLaughlin. I'm new here. I've been here actually pretty much 2 months today, and certainly learned a lot. Interestingly, a couple of the things that I was asked to focus on, in taking this position, and some of the reasons that, I got the position ahead of many of the other applicants, was that, I've got a fairly long history working with wildfire mitigation and, community preparedness before wildfires. So I'd like to apologize in advance for not having gotten that job done. But that's where we're going to be focusing on moving ahead from here. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the different reviews that have gone on or are going on or going to be going on, about the different ways that both the prescribed fire was done, about the suppression actions, about how we handle those type of events moving forward. I don't have a lot to add to that other than what we see locally as our recommendation is that at the very least the local fire departments be more involved in and more informed on those processes before they get started. And that's going to be our main focus in that respect. Along with that, we also want to work towards encouraging ways of getting rid of vegetation that are low risk, and that's something we'll be working on as well. But there are a couple other things that are probably worth talking about that are going to be happening more at a local level. To start with, we certainly learned a lot about not only how Elk Creek responded to this incident, but also all of the other assisting fire departments. On a local basis, we had all of the fire departments up and down the 285 corridor assisting. We had other departments from Jefferson County, and then we had a lot of other
resources coming in from a long way out. We saw a lot of issues, and a lot of those issues we've made some progress already at working on. Communications was a huge problem, and we're working both on putting together better equipment and also, more importantly, better procedures for how fire departments communicate. And a big part of that I see is not just the communication that happens when we go out on a fire, but the regular day-to-day stuff. None of us can handle any kind of a major event by ourselves. And very often the fire departments look at, their boundaries, their turf, what goes on in their area, and they focus on that. And that's appropriate, but we can't do that at the expense of looking at, the possibility of the bigger events that are going to take all of us to work on. So that process has started. We're meeting with the local chiefs, are getting together. We've been meeting with the sheriff's department, and we are working on, better ways that we can communicate on those incidents. And in addition, some of the other things that I think have come out, like having, better maps, better ability to find the fire, better ability to kind of put all of those things together. As we move forward, I think that it's important that everybody recognize, though, that all of the departments up here are primarily volunteer. And we have limited resources, and we're going to do, the best we can. We had a lot of firefighters that went out and worked. Many of them, came out to the fire at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and didn't, get out of the fire engines until late the next evening. They worked around the clock, doing what they could, and they're going to do that. But there will be fires in the mountains that we're not going to be able to stop. We just know that, and it's important for the community to know that when we have those type of incidents, we have to be prepared. We have to be well mitigated. We have to be prepared to evacuate. We have to be able to deal with the big incidents when they come. Because, as I said, most of the firefighters up here are volunteer. We have, we do what we can, but we're not going to be able to handle every incident that comes along. There always will be those ones like this one that, when the winds picked up that fire, there wasn't any way to stop it. You just had to, protect what you could and stay out of the way, because otherwise we would have been losing firefighters as well. This morning I met with a number of the representatives from the sheriff's department, and we started hammering out improvements to the evacuation system locally. We want to work, again, this is a joint operation, we want to work on how can we make evacuations work better. And we actually have come up with, I think, a really good plan that we're going to be rolling out. And I'm going to explain that briefly tonight, but I want you all to expect to see more information about this and more opportunity to learn about it as we move ahead. What we're looking at is moving to a 3-level evacuation system. So initially, when we have a fire like this, and we recognize that it even has some potential for eventually getting to homes, that we would declare what would be called a level 1 evacuation notice. And this would be sort of the equivalent of what has in the past been called a pre-evacuation. But we want to be clear that it is actually an evacuation notice, or what has been termed an early evacuation. And when that evacuation notice, that level 1 evacuation notice is issued, we would ask that people begin moving livestock and pets, that anybody who would be at particular risk, like elderly people, would move out of that area, and people that might have health conditions. A lot of times the issue that we have for people can be just the smoke from a fire, even if the fire never reaches there. So that notification would go out so that, people could be notified. And essentially that message would be, a level 1 evacuation means be ready. Residents should be notified of the danger that exists in their area and make preparations to leave. Residents with special needs, such as the elderly or those with a susceptibility to breathing problems, are advised to evacuate. People with livestock or pets should move them out of the area. Evacuations at this time are voluntary, but residents are encouraged to leave anytime they feel threatened. So that would be, something that we would initiate sooner on incidents like this. The one thing about this incident that we learned was, early on in the incident, it was very difficult to tell where it was going to impact. And so, it took longer to make that evacuation notice than it should have. And that, coupled with the communication issues, many of the other issues that we had there, really put us behind the 8 ball. And then on top of that, the fire moved faster than anybody that was there expected it to. By having this evacuation level in place in the future, we can, get that procedure going, in a much more precautionary method. From there, we would move to a level 2 evacuation, which means leave soon. This level indicates there's a significant danger to your area, and residents should relocate to a shelter or outside the affected area as soon as possible. And in this case, this would be what most people would think of during an evacuation, is that's when you load up your car, you get your pets, you get your family photos, and you get out of the area. What we wanted to do was make a distinction between that and a level 3 evacuation, which when we issue that would be a level 3 evacuation means leave immediately. Danger to your area is imminent and you should leave right now. So that's kind of the direction that we see going, and this is something that we want to try to expand, and help build the evacuation abilities for everybody, not just here in Jefferson County, but hopefully statewide, so that we build an evacuation system that gives us a better chance of saving lives and hopefully saving livestock and property, whatever we can. As we move forward with this, we're going to be working with the sheriff and with the other fire departments to take that message out to all of the communities as well. There's much more to evacuation than just having that message available, and that includes, really educating people. We want to look at neighborhoods. So if you live in Conifer Mountain, we want to be able to say, hey, these are the evacuation routes. This is what you should do, when you should go. We want to identify those trigger points so that we know before the fire threatens that area, we can just basically say, hey, we've already pre-planned this. And part of that pre-planning is going to be meeting with any of the neighborhoods, any of the communities that can, host us to come in and help plan this out better and to help communicate that procedure to the neighborhoods. So that is something, that is basically at this point, it's going to be a first come, first served thing. Come talk to me. If you've got a neighborhood association, or even if you just have neighbors that you're willing to get together at your house and help, this process, that's going to help us be a lot more prepared. It's going to help you be a lot more prepared. It's going to help the sheriff's deputies be a lot safer out in the field, help the firefighters be a lot safer as we, make these procedures, more thought out and better prepared in the future. Another part of that, another aspect that we want to look at with that is helping develop, better mitigation and better understanding of how to protect homes. We've got a lot of folks do a good job of mitigation up here, but there's always more that we can do, and very often It really takes someone with a good technical eye who understands how homes ignite to really help you, come in and say, hey, this is this is what's going to happen if we have a fire in the area. This is how you can best reduce the risk to your home in the future. That's a program that has been going on for a number of years in the country, the FireWise program, and both the FireWise program and the FireWise Communities program are programs that we have had available here in the community, but they're both programs that we want to increase participation in. The FireWise Communities program is a community-based one, again, working with individual neighborhoods where we look at, okay, if you live in a particular neighborhood, subdivision, or community, what is it that you guys as a community can do to reduce your risk individually and as a group? And, very often when we look at, the risk to homes, everybody out there shares some of that risk with their neighbors. And you have to work with your neighbors and with your community to help, jointly, reduce that risk and make your community safer. We are available to come out and to work with the communities on developing community plans for that mitigation, and to, again, help individual homeowners as well within those communities come up with, what are the best techniques for reducing the risk. And so that is a program that we have available, and we want to really encourage everybody. Basically, we're willing to commit, the whole summer, next year, however long it takes to reach everybody in the area and, help, reduce that risk to homes, to lives, to your animals. We've learned a lot of lessons, from this. We learned them very fast, unfortunately. And as a community, this is the time for us to look at how we can, take those lessons and use them to improve the fire department response, improve the joint response, but most of all, to really improve, that community preparedness. I guess the last thing I'd like to say is, I'd like to thank everybody for, really, I've been fighting wildfires for 25 years now. I fought them in all parts of the country, and I have never seen a community that has come out with so much support for the firefighters and for each other, and I'm just so happy to have moved here. I mean, I don't know what it took, how it kind of took me so long to find this place. But
Thank you, Bill, and welcome to Conifer. We didn't need to welcome him quite like we did. Okay, well, this community, as you all know, has many, many passions. And Conifer Area Council actually does surveys. We've done several surveys over the years. And we have found that one passion that a lot of people have is historic preservation. And so we have Janet Schoen here tonight. She's president of the Conifer Historic Museum and Society and Museum. And she's going to be introducing the Historic Structure Assessment presentation. And we have the Meyer family down here, so we were so happy to have you, Norm, and all of you here. And right now we'll have a short presentation on the Meyer Ranch House.
Thank you. It's really difficult to follow what we've just experienced and to talk about something different. I have friends here who have lost their homes. I have friends here who are just now getting back into their homes, and I have friends here who are first responders, and so it's difficult to look at something different than what we've just been all through and what we're still experiencing. But one of the ways that our community does come together besides disasters is for things that we really care about, and one of those things is the Meyer Ranch. We all love that iconic yellow house on US 285, and the Conifer Historical Society and Museum has been working with the Norm Meyer family to try to see if it's plausible for us to make a museum out of that home. And I first want to say that I am just one of the board members. There are many board members here for the Conifer Historical Society Museum. Board members either now or in the past. So would you raise your hand if you are one of those members? I want to thank you. Or if you've been working on the Meyer Museum project. So thank you guys for that. One of the things that is part of the feasibility study that we are doing for the Meyer Museum project is a historic structure assessment. And many of you contributed money or volunteer time or came to our events to raise money for a match for a state historical fund grant that we received to do a historic structure assessment. We went through a rigorous exercise to choose an architectural firm that we felt would do a good job of telling us about the property, about the yellow house, the Norm Meyer home, and we chose Gerou and Associates. They are an evergreen company, and you guys have heard the Gerou name tonight because Cheri Gerou is one of those architects, and her husband Phil Gerou is the principal on this, and Melissa Baker. And so they have put together a PowerPoint presentation to show you what we've discovered through that historic structure assessment. I want to just caution you, this is the first step. We still have to look at whether or not it's going to be a viable project, but this gives us a lot of great information, and we wanted to share that with you. So I'm going to turn this over to Phil.
As Janet said, she's going to be looking at if this is a viable project or not. Our job was to look at the Meyer ranch house and see if it was viable to turn that into a museum and what it would take to do that. When you say historic structure assessment, it sounds like you're assessing the structure. It's not what it is at all. That's part of it, but that's just a part of what it is. There are three groups that were absolutely necessary to make this happen. Without any one of these, the project stops. First, of course, is Norm Jr. and Norm Sr. and the entire Meyer family. They've been terrific through all of this. They've been reviewing our work. They've been allowing us access. They've been really driving behind all of this. Chisholm, Conifer Historic Society Museum. Originally, I had that graphic up here with a picture of Janet, and Janet said, no. It's not just Janet. It's a whole group of folks that are behind this. And then finally, funding from History Colorado, what used to be the Colorado Historical Society. And that's a picture of their new building. If you haven't been down there, it's extraordinary. We were hired back in October to put together this assessment, and we have put together the preliminary draft of it. It's about 200 pages long, so I'm not certainly going to go into any details tonight on it. But what we were doing is basically assessing the ranch home to see what it would take to turn it into a museum. How do you take a house and turn it into a museum? What needs to be done to the house to preserve the history of the house? What needs to be done to turn it into a museum? There are things that are required to be done by building codes, by ADA requirements, those kinds of things. But there's also things that should be done to preserve this house. And finally, what does all that cost? I'm not going to get into costs tonight because this hasn't been reviewed by the state yet, and so the report isn't final, but I'm sure that'll be public soon enough. Naturally, we looked at structure, and you see some rotting boards, you see some very interesting mechanical work in the house that's been growing over the years. There are some issues with the house. Overall, it is in remarkable condition, particularly structurally. These are just some of the things that we looked at when we were studying the house. We were looking at the history, the significance of the building. Why does it matter that that house is there? As I said, code compliance, ADA requirements, prioritizing the work that needs to be done. What is immediate that needs to be done? What can we put off a little bit? One of the first things that you need to do when you look at a historic assessment is you have to pick a time that you're going to take the house back to. Now, this house was built in 1889. It would make logical sense to take the house back to 1889 and recreate the house as it looked in 1889. There are a number of reasons we didn't do that. Number one, when the Meyer family bought this in 1950, they spent the next few years drastically renovating this house. There are some parts about the house that if we were to recommend that it go back to the original white color, that the red shutters shouldn't be on there because they weren't originally there, I think probably 90% of you would be horrified at that. So we're not recommending that. What we are recommending is that we take it back to 1951. That's about halfway through the life of the house. Actually, it's exactly halfway through the life of the house. First thing we did is a set of drawings to show what the house is. That's easy enough for the existing house. But we also wanted to show the drawings as the house existed in 1889. We wanted to show what the house looked like in 1910. So we did a whole series of drawings showing how it's evolved over the years. Go ahead. I'm going to skip over a few things because I don't want to see the card. It scared me off. We were part of the team. We were the ones that were hired to do this work, and I get to stand here and talk. Melissa, who was drastically involved in this whole project, it works in our office. She's also very involved in the community here, and she deserves much of the credit on this too. We had mechanical engineers come in and look at it, electrical, structural engineers. Bill Newell from Monroe Newell has 40 years of experience. We brought in some experts to take a look at some of those pieces of the project. There are also some other people that were part of this that they didn't even know they were going to be part of this. A lot of the local jurisdictions that offered us information, Department of Highways, all these people that we talked to. The folks in yellow are independent people that mostly gave us cost information on what it's going to cost to do the different pieces of the work. This one's, it's a little hard to read, but basically the Meyer Ranch, we're looking at just the house on this. The ranch property right now is about 90 acres. It was originally about 640 acres. It's changed hands and gone back and forth over the years. And in the 1980s, the Meyers sold a good portion of it, I think 3 of the 400 acres that was available at the time, to Jefferson County for open space. But the history of the ranch goes back a lot further. And it's important. One of the interesting things we came across is Abe Lincoln. Back in 1862, he had a lot of things on his plate right then. But one of the things he did is he set up the Homestead Act. An individual could come out and identify 160 acres that they personally would improve, and then they could take title to it. John and Duncan McIntyre, I'm not exactly sure how they got 4 parcels, but they did, probably through family members. And they got 4 160-acre parcels back in 1869 as part of the Homestead Act. And that became the core of what is now the Meyer Ranch. A year later, they built the McIntyre barn. We know exactly the year because some of the wood in the barn has been dated. It was all milled on site. And then in 1883, Louis and Mary Rambo bought the property. And 6 years later, they built the Midway House, the Meyer Ranch House. It's called the Midway House in some documents because it was midway between Denver and Bailey. In other documents, it's the Midway House because it's midway between Denver, and Buena Vista. It depends on who you talk to as far as what it's midway between. But it was on a stage stop, and so it was midway between Denver and Points West. In 1912, Ralph Kirkpatrick purchased the ranch, and he owned it right up until 1950, when the Meyer family came in and bought the property. One other interesting note that many of you know about, some of you maybe not, there was a ski area there at one time. 1940, 1941, Mount Lugo, and Lugo is the Americanized version of the mountain, was developed, and a ski area with a 1,200-foot rope tow was put in. Unfortunately, because it was World War II, and gas rationing was in vogue right then, it only lasted for 2 years. But some of the clearing can still be seen out there, and as a matter of fact, part of the rope tow equipment is still out there rusting away. Like I said, 1950, the Meyers purchased it, and in 87, they sold 400 acres to become part of Jefferson County Open Space. Very significant thing happened in 1990. It became listed on the national and state registers of historic places. There aren't that many places in Colorado that are listed there, and certainly no places in this part of the county. So to be listed on the national register, to be recognized nationally as a historic house is pretty extraordinary. And then many of you know that 2 years ago in August, the final flight of the Norm Myers plane from the ranch took place, and many of you participated in that. The family, back in the photograph, as it's published in many books and web pages and around, says Louis Rambo family with home built circa 1880s. Well, we know for a fact it was built in 1889, and then we started looking at the photograph and did a little genealogy search and figured out that that's actually Louis Rambo's grandchildren, not his children. And so this photograph was probably taken around 1885 or 1895 or 1896. Oh my gosh, 1 minute, we're gonna make it quick. Go. Midway House, 1900, go. In 49, by that time we had, the front porch had grown to cover the whole front porch. Go ahead. Go. In the 50s, the renovations, they insulated the house, they added onto it significantly. Go ahead. Obviously, a lot of the handwork was done by Norm. Bless his heart. He did a lot of the planing and everything himself. Go ahead. Interestingly, in the late 50s, they put in a swimming pool. Now, is that because Norm thought that Norm Jr. needed to learn how to swim? I don't think so. It was partially put in as a water cistern because they had had a major fire on the property and had burned down one of their buildings, and they didn't have enough water to fight the fire. So they put in the swimming pool in part to help fight fires. The brick for the house came from Nevadaville. Where the heck is that? It's about 2 miles west of Central City, and if they had legalized gambling there, we'd all know about it now. For those of you that haven't been in the house, and probably some of you haven't, there are some parts of this house that are absolutely breathtaking, that are just stunning pieces of Conifer history that has to be preserved. The main entry is the one portion of the house that dates from 1889, and original wallpaper, original flooring, original everything. That part has not been touched. And so that part we're going to leave as 1889. So that's a little bit of the history of the house, a little bit of what we're doing to help preserve it, and time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil and Melissa. Time goes pretty fast when you're, having fun. Okay, we just have a couple more minutes of presentations, and then we'll be ready to stretch our legs and everything. There are two other buildings in this area that the community is very passionate about, and that's the Yellow Barn and the Little White Schoolhouse. And Carla Mink is going to take about 1 or 2 minutes to tell you about those two properties and what's happening with them right now.
I'll make this fast because open house is next, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the Mink you want to hear from. I'm really surprised you give me a stage and a microphone and expect me to get done in 2 minutes when I'm talking about my two favorite places in the world, the Yellow Barn and the Little White Schoolhouse. So I'm going to read statements. First, I've got a statement from Denise and Andy Clark, the current owners of the Yellow Barn, and I'm just going to read it, and that way I'll get done faster. Ooh, glasses. Okay. Progress was made on Bradford Junction in 2011. All the buildings were painted and necessary repairs were made to the leased buildings. In the past few weeks, we have refurbished the Civil War well. However, we have come to realize that the costs to refurbish the barn are going to be too much for us to take on. We are having discussions on various options with many parties. There are potential private purchasers for the property, and we are also in discussion with various historic groups from Conifer and Jefferson County to see if all or part of the property can be taken on by the community. Only a not-for-profit organization will qualify for 100% grants from state and national historic funding sources. So watch out for more news on the Yellow Barn, Bradford Junction throughout the course of 2012. This is probably the first time some of you are hearing that. This is new information that came up at a historic preservation meeting this week. Next, this is also probably the first time some of you are hearing about the news about the Little White Schoolhouse. This is a statement from current director Ellen Daniels from the Little White Schoolhouse. We have received word that the preschool program that has been housed at the Little White Schoolhouse since the 1960s is officially moving to West Jeff Elementary School. Classes will begin in the new preschool classrooms at West Jeff L in the fall. We are still the public preschool option for the Conifer articulation area, including Elk Creek, Marshall, and West Jeff. The program will stay exactly the same. It will just be held in a different location. That was from Ellen. And then I heard back from the school district, because everybody wants to know what's going to happen to the Little White Schoolhouse building after the preschool moves out. This is from the Director of Facility Planning, and it's really short, so it's almost open house. This made me feel better. We desire a mutually satisfactory agreement between the community and ourselves, meaning Jefferson County Schools. At this time, the only decision that has been made is the relocation of the preschool program, and this is based upon what we believe is best for the children. I hope this information is sufficient to assure the folks, that's us, that we will be looking for a solution that is best for all. So, I am done. Thank you. Oh, I've got to tell you, there are two Ted Minks here tonight. My support system, my father-in-law, Ted Mink, came with us. He drove up from Texas. He's in his late 80s, but I won't say exactly because I guess that wouldn't be nice. But he drove up here on his own, like he does about twice a year. So welcome to Papa Mink.
Thank you, Carla. We have just one last speaker about another thing that we are quite passionate about here in the Conifer area, and that is water. The Aspen Park Metro District, that's the center, is requesting to allow for surface discharge improvements to their existing wastewater treatment facility. There is a site approval hearing on May 9th at 6:15 at the Jeffco Administration Building. And Marty Whitmore, who is with Jackson Kelly, will talk just for a couple minutes about that. And then she will also be over here to talk about that afterwards during the open house.
Thank you, Shirley. I spoke in January and gave you most of the background on this. I'm going to just be really brief because I know it's been a long evening already. Current status. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment is in the final stages of issuing its site approval. The discharge permit effluent limitations have been agreed upon. They are probably some of the most stringent effluent limitations in the state. They are consistent with the newly promulgated, very, very stringent nutrient standards that are applicable statewide, and they are also in compliance with the anti-degradation standard. We have recently completed the change in the augmentation plan to allow up to 4 acre-feet per year to be discharged to the surface. Let me remind you, it is just the amount of water that will not exfiltrate that is being surface discharged. It is not a complete change. This is a minor change in their process. It's simply to ensure that that water, which will not physically infiltrate, does not get hauled off and out of the basin. It goes into the surface instead. And it's not new growth, it's not new development, it's not expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. The project, the King Soopers is already there, the shopping center is already there. It's not an expansion of the wastewater treatment facility in any way. It's simply a modification to basically allow it to function. So I will, I guess, surely be right over it there if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Marty. Okay, there's so much going on around here, and we'd love to tell you more, but we've run out of time. So one thing that I would like to request that you do, and that is to take your packets with you, because you've got so much information in there. You've got the development updates, thanks to Peter Barkman. You've got the summer fun events in the Conifer area, thanks to Don Smith. You've got wildfire disaster resources. We didn't talk about those, but definitely look at those. Susan Imming on our board put those together. And the mountain remote slash schedule for summer 2012 is on the back, extremely important. So I would like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank my husband Jim for printing all the information for tonight's meeting. Obviously there was quite a bit that went into that. He's with Pinnacle Mortgage, so he and Pinnacle Mortgage did that. I'd like to thank Norm Meyer and family for being here. I'd like to thank JJ Madlos for their community support for this town hall meeting. And everybody that, already the sheriffs are standing here. Where are all the firefighters that are here tonight? Would you all stand if you're not, probably they're in the back, but they went on a call. Oh, darn. Okay. They miss everything. And everyone stand that was evacuated. How many people in here were evacuated? I know I was, so. Okay. And I would also like everyone to stand that helped with the fire. The restaurants, the chamber, just everybody was out there just helping so much. So please, everybody stand that did anything to help with the fire. I think we're all being very modest, okay. The most, especially I would like to thank all of you for being here tonight. We really appreciate you coming and finding out about the community. That means you care, so thank you. And we're going to have all of the people, all the fire, information folks up here. So anybody that still has questions about that, come down here to the front. There's lots of literature and everything back here. We'll have our elected officials over here. We have Jeannie Nicholson and Tim Neville, who are both state senators here. All of our elected officials will be over in this area. Marty Whitmore about the water. We've got trails information back in the back. Our trails team has just done amazing things. We've got the chamber, we've got Taste of Italy is coming up, and so we've got people selling tickets for that. Mountain Resource Center, I mean, you name it, we've got it. So please stick around for a little bit and talk to everybody, pick up whatever you can, and get all the questions answered that you can. And thank you so much for coming.